Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brian Ryder. Today's video I'm going to show you how to quickly color correct and color grade your footage. I'm not a pro, but I'm trying to keep this simple for everyone to understand. If you're a professional colorist, please feel free to give me your tips in the comments. And if you enjoy something from this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Without further ado, let's go into the things we have to do. Let's go first into our coloring page. Before we begin, we're going to change a couple of settings in here. We're going to go to the settings, project settings, and then we're going to open Camera Raw. By default, it's going to be into Arri Alexa. You select that menu, and then you're going to see the different options of cameras in here, either Sony, Canon, Phantom, whatever you're shooting with. In my case, I'm shooting with the Blackmagic Raw. I know that, and then I'm going to simply cancel this, and then that tells DaVinci Resolve how to interpret the footage, the raw footage that you have. Now we're going to change a couple things. We're going to select into the in this section of this menu over here, we're going to select the custom curves, and we're going to change the scope. In my case, I have the vector scope. I'm going to go to the parade right here. What this is showing us is the values of the red, green, and blue, or cyan in this case. And the idea is for us to make the levels even throughout, so we have more information in the darker parts of the video as well as in the highlights. The idea is to have it closer to 100 and closer to 0. That's the whole spectrum that our eyes can see. Before we begin, we're going to create 3 different nodes. Easy way to create is you simply press Shift S and that will create a serial node. Another way to do that is just right click and then create a node, in this case a serial node. I'm going to label everything. To label, right click. This was going to be correction. The second one, I'm going to label skin, and I'm going to do something specific for the skin. And then the third one, I'm going to label my grade. This is my grade at the end, the orange and teal that everyone uses, or anything else. We're going to go to the first node, which is correction. We're going to select this icon in here, which is the curves, which is custom. And then we're going to go to this menu. We have the YRGB. We're going to delink everything by selecting the Y. What we're going to do is trick the eye. The reason I'm going to do this is to simplify the way we color correct things. Instead of using the primary color wheels, which is messy and perhaps we have no clue how to use them, I'm going to bring everything to black and white, which this removes color and makes sure that your eye understand that there's enough information on the darker side and in the highlights of the spot. We're going to turn the saturation to 0. You can scroll, or you can just type in 0 and enter, and everything is effectively black and white. We're in the correction node. After that, you see there's missing information here and there's some missing information here. What I'm going to do is create a point of inflection and trying to bring everything closer. Use your eyes for this. That's the best advice that I can tell you. And then the second thing, I'm going to bring a little bit closer to the 100%. Doesn't need to be there. There's some information clipping in there, but that's most likely the sky and the reflection in the mirror of this scene. After that, we're going to bring the saturation back to 50 or 0.50. I'm going to type it in, hit enter, and immediately it is much better than what it was. This is what it was. This is what it is. Raw, and this is color corrected. Right there, you can export and share it with your client. You have a beautiful looking footage if you have shot in raw. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bump up all the colors. Because we didn't use the color wheels to do this, there is not enough saturation in the colors at this point. And I'm going to go to the RGB mixer. I'm just going to bring the red all the way up, the green all the way up, and the blue all the way up. Now the image is rich in color. What it was, what it is. Beautiful looking footage. That's all you need. That's all your clients ever are going to need. If you want to continue with this tutorial, then I'm going to do something with the skin. It's pretty simple. I'm going to use the dropper, and then I'm going to select the skin. Chances are, if something else is selected, perhaps the yellow on the shirt that this character is using, it will need the color correction. It will help out. One thing I'm going to do is, because I just want to affect the skin in this case, I'm going to create a window, power window, go to the circular power window, and I'm going to put it on top of the skin. I'm going to make sure I'm kind of aligning to that, so I'm not touching anything else. It just helps it a little bit better. And then after that, I'm gonna just go to my scopes one more time. I'm gonna go to the vector scope. Make sure you have this line in here. That's for the color of the skin. And I'm gonna go back to my primary wheels. Right here, I know that I need to touch this to have the skin's naturally looking, meaning the proper amount of red or the proper amount of color into the skin. What I'm gonna do is switch the gain a little bit, trying to keep it closer. You see the vector scope is getting closer, and I'm gonna add a little bit of the lift and a little bit of the gamma and a little bit of the lift into that. So now the skin should be completely rosy color, if you will. If you want to see how it looks, just press Shift H, and that will disable the mask that you have in there to bring it back to disable it. Or you can also press this button over here. That's how the skin looks right now. Now we're gonna do our grade. Before we go into our grade, we're gonna add a parallel node. A parallel node, imagine these are layers in Photoshop. So basically what you're doing is you have a layer, which is the base layer of color correction. Then you have a layer, which is the skin. And then on top of that, you have a grade. If you think of Photoshop as a system of layers, this is effectively doing the exact same thing. What we're gonna do is we're gonna try to preserve the skin layer for that, or the correction that we did throughout the skin, so it looks more natural throughout without being affected by the grade that we're gonna do. To do that, we're gonna go to the grade, we're gonna right click, we're gonna create a different node in here. In this case, we're gonna add a parallel node. And this will save the correction, just link it, simple as that. That will preserve the enhancement that we did to the skin, as you can see here in the vector scope. And then we're gonna go to our grade. The grade is pretty easy. You have the lift, the gamma, and the gain. Lift, the darker colors, gamma, medium tones, and gain, whatever is above on the highlights. And we're gonna just do the typical, the orange and teal that everyone does. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of blue into the darker tones. Let me go to the parade so you can see it. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of orange into the highlights. And ta-da! We have orange and teal effectively. Let's say you want to do something different. Well, I want to do a little bit more of like a retro vibe. So let me add a little bit of kind of purplish into the lift, and let me bring the gain a little bit into the greens. So it looks a little bit more vintagey, more 70s, more, I don't know, like Stranger Things, if you will. And then you can play with that. If you play with opposites, it's a little bit more interesting. Or we can reverse that, simply add a little bit more of a green into the lift, and a little bit more purple into the highlights. And then it becomes like a soft 80s movie. And that's all you need to know. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. See you guys on the next one. Goodbye.